The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 351 with Alex Bennett, fitness specialist at the PGA Tour Performance Center. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast, where we're here to help you build a stronger game. This week, we've got Alex Bennett, the fitness specialist at the PGA Tour Performance Center down at TPC Sawgrass. And this week, we're talking with him about everything under the sun when it comes to golf and fitness, specifically working with his tour players, what he's doing with them to make them as strong as possible, get them as fit and conditioned as well as possible to get out on the golf course. He's working with Billy Horschul, Sam Ryder, and a lot of other tour players that play out of TPC Sawgrass. But he also works with a lot of the general public, either golfers that are coming down for the week or golfers that work in the area and play golf there. So he has a lot of experience with every level of golfer, from juniors to collegiate players to professionals. So we discuss, how does he utilize an assessment? What's his recommendations for people when they come in and they're struggling with either their mobility or their strength or their power or their fitness or just their general endurance out on the golf course? So you're really going to enjoy this episode with Alex Bennett. We're going to get into our conversation right after this. Our partners over at Linksol have been providing us with the best apparel for both on the course and off the course, from polos to t-shirts like the one I have on right now. Everything that they have is meant to be worn from the golf course to wherever you're going next, whether that be casual, whether that be to the beach. There's all different options over there. So go to 18strong.com/Linksol. You'll get 20% off of anything in your cart over on Linksol's website. So again, 18strong.com/Linksol for our favorite brand of apparel for anything on the golf course and off. Now let's get to this week's interview. So how long have you been down at TPC?
This is year 7, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd that whole thing come about?
So I played in college, and then I was playing professionally, and I had a bunch of injuries, and I kind of fell in love with the whole physical side of it and the whole corrective exercise science behind it. I realized that I was doing a lot of stuff to look good at the beach and not play good golf. So once I got more into like the physical therapy side, I fell in love with it. I realized like you really need to train for your specific sport. And there's a big difference between training to just look good and training for your sport. So I ended up breaking my wrist. I was in a cast, and I did like the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I did like Athletic and Fitness Association of America. I did TPI. I basically did all the training I could possibly do while I was in the cast and just killing time. I was working at a place called Fitness by Frank. Jeff Frank was the head of that gym. He's VJ Singh's guy.
Yeah, okay.
He kind of hired me to do a lot of the golf training, and I was there for a little while, and then I just got lucky. This place was under construction. It was opening, and Todd Anderson knew me a little bit from my playing days. I used to work with Jared Zach on my swing, and he's working at Sea Island. Me and Todd had never met, and Todd Anderson was the director of instruction here, appointed the director of instruction here. So I came here, got lucky, got an interview, and me and him hit it off. And then it was kind of funny, the interview process. I thought the first interview went really well, and he was like, I'll be in touch. I didn't hear anything for a few months, and I was like, well, whatever. It didn't go my way. I was kind of new in the business. I was young. So I'm like, they're probably looking for someone with more experience. And he called me on a Tuesday. I'll never forget. He called me on a Tuesday out of nowhere. And I was like, oh man, I gotta take this call. Hopefully he's calling me on purpose and it's not a butt dial.
Yeah, right.
But he was like, hey man, can you meet me at Fresh Market? There's a grocery store here right outside of TBC. Can you meet me at Fresh Market? We're going to hop in my truck and we're going to go to a client's house. I want you to do an assessment on them and kind of tell us everything you would do differently, or, whatever you see, tell us. So I get in the car and, we're driving. And he goes, yeah, I'm taking you to Billy Horschul's house. And it was the week of the Masters. He didn't qualify for the Masters. He'd kind of had a tough year. And I was like, man, all right, Billy Horschul, it's pretty big name. So we go in there. Billy was not the most like welcoming guy and I think they were kind of testing me. They were seeing if I was just going to kind of be a yes man or if I was going to tell them what I thought he could get better at. And I was like, the first 10 minutes, I'm like, I'm not going to get this job. This is not going great. Billy's barely even like looked at me. This is tough. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to go out, I'm just going to tell him everything I think he could fix or that's wrong with his body. We did an assessment. I pointed out like what I would change, what I would do. And they ended up liking it a lot. And Todd offered me the job in Billy's driveway as we were leaving. So I was pretty thrilled. It was kind of funny too. I just gotten engaged, and my mom, I had like 6 missed phone calls because I ended up being over there for almost 3.5 hours, and they were just like, "What? How'd it go? Like, we haven't heard anything. Where are you?" So it was pretty funny, but it was great, and I'm like very thankful, obviously, to Todd and Billy for giving me an opportunity when I was 25, 26 when I got the job. So I was definitely very thankful.
And you're still, I mean, I still see you working with Billy on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, me and Billy have worked together pretty much ever since. After I got this job, I think he finished out that year, and then in the off season, I started working with him, and I've worked with him ever since. Yeah.
Wow. How many other tour pros are actually down right in your area? Are they members at TPC? Like, does Billy play there on a regular basis, and do the other guys that I see you working with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are members here that play out of here. I don't work with all of them. I think I've got 8 guys this year on tour, and they all pretty much live out of here. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So the Performance Center, describe it to people a little bit. I had a chance to go there the week of the Players Championship, and unfortunately our paths didn't cross. I knew you were working like some crazy hours, and
yeah,
it just didn't work.
I was running around that week. That week's always busy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, are you there like just sun up to sundown and then get out as quick as you can to get some shut eye?
Players is tough. Yeah, I mean, the year we had all the restarts when we had a ton of rain and it was cold. I think it was 2 years ago. I mean, I don't even remember that week. It was insane. I mean, I was in here warming up guys at 4 a.m. and then hanging around because it was like we'd get a weather delay and then they'd want to warm up again at 2 o'clock for their restart. I mean, that was a crazy week. This year was a little less crazy, but it was still, I mean, it's always nuts. Guys are wanting to warm up super early in the morning, and then I'm kind of just hanging around. And I think I had 6 guys in the tournament this year, so it was definitely a busy one, just kind of hanging around. I've got a whole new appreciation for the guys that travel nonstop on tour with their guys. I'm actually going to start traveling a little more next year.
Nice.
So I know it's definitely exhausting, but I think it's worth it just to get show your face out there on tour and kind of get some more eyeballs on you, I think.
When the Players is going on, are the other guys that you don't work with, are they utilizing the Performance Center as well? Or are they going to the fitness trailer, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we did a bit of both. Guys were using the fitness trailer, but guys were also coming over to the Performance Center. I mean, we had a lot of players. I've gotten to know a lot of trainers out there now, and they'll just shoot me a text like, "Hey, can we come use the Performance Center? Can we, trailer's a little packed, or our hotel gym's not as good as we thought," whatever it may be. I'm always open to letting guys come over and use it. The PGA Tour has been nice enough to let me keep it the last 4 or 5 years. When I first started here, they'd move all the gym equipment out, and it would actually be like a headquarters for all the rules official. So it was insane. I mean, we've had like doors broken just from people moving equipment in and out of the gym. The door one of our doors to the gym still doesn't work properly, and everybody's always like, "Man, what's that?" I'm like, "Well, that was like 5 years ago. The Players, and they've bent a hinge, and we haven't fixed it still." But I mean, now I've got so much equipment in there, and it's like you got this many guys playing in the tournament. I've got this many guys coming to the facility just to use the gym. I think, the tour was like, why don't we just let them keep it, and we'll have that much extra space for players. I mean, it is the Players, so let's make it as good as possible for the players actually playing the tournament and give them as many options as possible.
How big is the place, and what else is in there? Do you guys have hitting bays? Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go and really like.
So the Performance Center itself is pretty big. We've got 4 hitting bays. I'm sitting in our like break room kind of area. We've got 4 hitting bays. We've got the gym upstairs. We've got a putting lab upstairs. We've got a couple offices upstairs. We've got a bunch of offices on the bottom floor, and then we just re-turfed our entire tee with a special type of Bermuda that they're using. They used it in the Super Bowl, and it's supposed to like come back in half the time as normal Bermuda, because we were having a problem where we were running out of turf on our tee just because we were so busy. But this summer, luckily, like it's been a little lighter, so our tee looks pretty good right now. But it's a pretty big place. We've got a nice chipping green, nice putting green. We've got putting instructors. You know, we've got a few swing instructors. We've got Todd Anderson, obviously. So it's definitely a good place to work at if you're looking to get better at golf.
Yeah. Are you the only fitness person in there? Are you the director of fitness? And
yeah, I'm the only fitness here. My title's fitness specialist. The tour's got some interesting rules about what it takes to be a director. You kind of have to have 2 employees working underneath you. The problem with our space, I don't know if you got to see the gym, but I think it's about 800 square feet. So it's not like massive. And it actually was originally 2 hitting bays that were going to be simulators. So it's not the rooms. It's like 2 rooms put together basically. So it's not got the best like flow to it. So it gets crowded in there quick. And sometimes like I'll have, especially when the Corn Ferry's off and the PGA Tour's off, I mean, I'll have 3 to 4 guys in there at a time, and it's definitely gets crowded. So if we had another trainer and they were just, we'd really have to work on our scheduling. Right now, like the tour players enjoy having the freedom of, you know, they book a time and they go, oh, hey, I saw, you know, so-and-so's at 8, I'm just going to join them. So it's like, we try to keep it as fluid as possible around here, because we feel like we always say schedule and pencil, because you're going to be erasing a lot of things.
Yeah. So do you have other like just general public golfers that come in to see you too?
I do. I actually have a lot of just normal golfers that are either retired and they're just looking to play 3 days in a row without being in a lot of pain. And I also have a lot of juniors that I work with as well. I really enjoy working with a lot of the juniors. Honestly, that's kind of why I got into it, because I had all the injuries I had and I was doing the wrong things in the gym. So I was really like, all right, how do I help people not make the same mistakes I made?
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit, because I think that there's so much like low-hanging fruit kind of stuff that, you know, people just don't realize just a few simple things can make a huge difference. But talk a little bit about, you know, you said you're kind of more working out for the pool, working out for the beach muscles kind of thing, like most of us guys do when we're, you know, young and, you know, and so what are some of the things that, you know, some of these, let's say the young aspiring golfers, and even then just general John Q public golfer can start to implement that are going to make some big differences? And what should they maybe start to kind of take away from the routine that they probably have adopted?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always preach to people is just go get assessed. Like, get assessed by a TPI certified trainer or functional movement patterns trainer, somebody. And I'm a big fan of, like I said, corrective exercise science. I think somebody with an understanding of that's huge when you're playing a sport that's as one-sided as golf is, because you're just always going to be so imbalanced. And seeing someone and being really, you know, accurate with what your issues are, and then seeing them to kind of be like, all right, let's design a warm-up routine or a daily routine that's corrective based, that's going to really help me stay healthy and play consistently and not be in pain. All my players have very specific warm-ups to them. I mean, there's basic foundational things we do in all the warm-ups, but each one of them has a little bit, there'll be like 3 or 4 moves that are different from player A to player B. And I tell amateurs all the time, I say, you know, working all day and then just driving 30 minutes to the course and then swinging 2 clubs and then trying to hit balls isn't going to do it. Like, you're going to be in pain and you're not going to get better at golf. And then they take 50 lessons and they don't see much improvement. And I'm like, well, it's great. They're telling you the right thing, but physically you just can't do it. And then when you sit at a desk all day and you're trying to get more external rotation out of your shoulders or more thoracic rotation, and you're sitting here at a computer all day like this, what makes you think your body's just going to naturally be like, oh, I can go do this now? So seeing someone getting assessed and then getting a specific routine to that individual that they can do daily, that's not going to make them super sore, but it's going to have, you know, core activation, it's going to have glute activation in it, it's going to have some thoracic rotation, it's going to address the issues that person has, I think is just so important for every single person, even if they're not trying to play competitive golf, but if they want to just be healthy and play golf.
Well, and the consistency is so key too, right? I saw on your website you have a great video, and you talk about how if you are somebody that's working at a desk, or really just anybody, when you go to the tee, your body's going to feel different every single time that you step up to swing a golf ball, or to swing a golf club at the golf ball. And so having that consistency is just dialing in the body, right? So having some sort of routine that, day in, day out, you know what you need to check off the list to get yourself prepared.
Yeah, the site, it's a work in progress right now. I just had this Sal Sincata is his name. He's like an expert in videography and photography and everything. He just like reshot everything for me, and we're reshooting all the like workout videos, because all the workout videos were just me shooting myself, like doing moves, and we've broken down a bunch of programs and everything. But like I can't thank Sal enough. The website's become really good quality compared to when I did it myself. He was like, dude, we got to make this. This looks real mom and pop shop. We gotta fix this. And I'm like, well, I did it myself on the computer on weekends, like with my daughter crawling all over me. So it's pretty funny.
You've got some great B-roll with all the guys you work with and everything. Is he the one shooting your YouTube videos too?
He shot all the B-roll and he shot all the footage for the site. His team like did everything on the site, but I'm shooting all my own YouTube stuff. He's doing enough for me. I don't want to ask him to do too much,
No, it looks good. I just kind of started. How long have you been doing the YouTube channel?
Not long at all. I just started that. I just started doing it seriously the last like month or so.
Yeah, because I just started to watch them and started seeing them pop up. Really good though. It's cool to get an insight on some of the other stuff that you do, like out on the soccer field doing some conditioning stuff, and that's something I was gonna actually ask you about, the conditioning that you do with your golfers, because we see a lot of the stretchy kind of moves and the stuff that everybody sees on Instagram, but you were talking about different conditioning, especially you're down in Florida, the heat. You've got guys that are playing 4 days in a row, but also practice rounds. So what are some of your go-tos when you're working on conditioning for your pros, and then maybe also for just kind of the regular Joe?
Yeah, it's I started doing those workouts. I like, because I think I did a video with like Ben Coles, who's number one right now on the Korn Ferry money list. I did with Chandler Blanchard, who won PGA Tour Latin America money list. I just like doing that because I like giving the people kind of the behind the scenes look at these guys, so they realize they're just normal everyday guys like everybody else. And we were doing like the little soccer challenge and stuff like that. But I'm a big believer, especially like Chandler. We were talking about, he was playing in Tulum, Mexico for the Tour Championship, which he won. But we were talking about like, look, it's going to be, over 100 degrees down there. Like, let's either do some sauna this week or let's do some outdoor workouts, because you need to have some acclimation to that heat. And credit to him, he did it, and then he goes down there and wins in extra holes, and it's like that, that stuff pays off. But that's the stuff I think people don't really see, like that level of, oh wow, okay, when these guys are going to play in a hot climate, they're doing some acclimation to that hot climate before. Those guys they're walking a minimum 72 holes. That's just their tournament. That's not the practice rounds and everything, like you said. It's definitely like a grueling sport that people don't realize. But I'm a big fan of, more so just in the gym, keeping the pace up when we're doing our strength training. Like we're not doing a ton of, especially in season, we're not doing like a ton of power lifting where we're going to have to take 3 to 4 minutes off in between reps. Most of the time I like to superset things. So guys are going from one exercise right to the other exercise, back to the other exercise. And they're not, when I have 3 to 4 guys in there, they definitely take a little more break, and they're talking some crap to each other and talking about whatever game was on the night before or whatever that is. I'm all for that because that's just camaraderie and guys enjoy it. But I'm more of a fan of just keeping the pace up in the gym, having your specific movements. I'm not a big fan of running. I've just found that it just beats guys they just get beat up, and no one's in perfect, alignment, and hardly any of these golfers have proper running motions or gaits. So they go for like a long distance run and they're like, man, my hip's killing me, my knee's killing me, my back's, so I just don't do a lot of that stuff. I am a fan. We have like a skier here We've got the Techno Gym curve treadmill. I like getting guys doing some like sled pushes, even lighter, quicker sled pushes where they're maybe not moving a ton of weight, but they're having to move it fast. I'm a big fan of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement as far as the running's concerned. I think so many people lean on running it for conditioning or treadmill or whatever, just because it's easy to do, right? It's easy to get out and just run. But to your point, especially for high level golfers that are earning a paycheck, to send them out to condition and do that when their gait patterns might be off, they might do something that just puts them out for the next week, and they don't necessarily need running capacity for their golf, right?
No, and I mean I tell guys all the time, look, my first job is just not to injure you and allow you not to get injured. So if there's something, like I have guys show me like a Instagram clip, they're like, oh man, look at this move. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But that guy's a full-time CrossFit athlete. Like he's not a golfer. He's not going to play, 6 weeks in a row and he's better shoulder mechanics than you or whatever it may be. So it's like, it's sometimes having to dial those guys back. They're so competitive. It's not all about pushing them. It's sometimes being like, hey, let's calm down a little bit. Let's not do that. That's going to lead to some issues. So it's definitely a give or take relationship with those guys though, too.
Speak, if you would, to the point of how important it is to have a specific goal in mind. So like you've got Billy Horschul, you've got Sam Ryder, these guys, obviously their goal is specifically for the PGA Tour. Now you might have John Smith that comes in and he's looking to, lose some weight. He wants his golf game to get better, but how might it be different that when you're working with somebody like that, where, they're looking a little bit more for general health and a little bit of weight loss that also helps their game?
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. I mean, you got to have, I don't want to say an end goal in mind because I feel like there's never an end. You're always just trying to get better, but you got to have something. You got to have those steps along the way where you go, oh, I am getting better. My swing speed is up 3 miles an hour. Or I just played 3 days in a row and I just noticed my back doesn't hurt. Or I've had guys, I mean, that are just like, I just want to be able to bend over and tie my shoe. And it's like, they come into the gym after a month or so and they're like, hey, Alex, look at this. And they're like pumped as if, somebody just came back and won a PGA Tour event. It's like, that's a big deal to them just to be able to bend over and tie their shoe with no pain. So, I mean, everyone's got different goals and everyone's starting with, on a different scale. And it's important to like realize that when you're training them that, hey, Billy Horschel's here, but I'm not going to be able to push this guy to that level, or I'm not going to be able to push him as hard. And I mean, that's something I've noticed, like me and Sam Ryder have worked together for, I want to say it's probably been 5 years, maybe over 5 years. And like this season, going into this season, I noticed a huge difference with him, just knowing he was just very focused. And he was like, look, I want to make top 70. That's my goal. I'm going to work hard. And he came out of the gates. I mean, he didn't miss a single workout. He didn't show up late. And then he came out of the gates. He played great. And it was nice to see because he's always been so talented. Everyone around here that plays with him knows how talented that guy is. And to see it finally like coming to fruition and him putting in the right work and really just zeroed in. And we've been saying, we just shot this thing for the PGA Tour. It's been on the Golf Channel the past couple of days, and he makes a joke about it. But we've been saying all off season, we've been saying all this season, you got to keep checking the boxes. And he's like, yeah, when I wake up, I gotta hydrate, and then I gotta do my warm up. That's checking boxes. Like he's got to take the steps to be great. And he's finally, he's over 30, and I think he's like, all right, it's time for me to win. Like it's time for me to realize my full talent, and it's fun to watch.
How much do you see that little mental shift of even just the checking the boxes? The process of, okay, I did this. How has that seemed to impact his confidence level and just the way he carries himself? Because I know that, and you probably see with the juniors and anybody you work with, just when they start to really see themselves doing the things that other people aren't necessarily doing, and they're like, yeah, I'm doing this. It seems, in my experience, seems to make them carry themselves a little differently. Have you seen that in him and some of the other guys?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I've seen it just in the way he carries himself. You're right. I mean, he's just much more confident. He knows he's putting in the work. So like he knows his skill can just show. He's not relying purely on talent. So, I mean, you definitely see a difference in the way he carries himself. and he might be mad at me for saying this, but in the years past, he was always a guy, he'd text me on like, say, a Thursday and be like, hey, I'm going to be back next week. Can you put me in Monday through Friday? So I'd put him in the schedule, it'd be fine. And then Monday morning would roll around. He was supposed to come in at 10 a.m. It'd be like 10:10. And I'd text him and be like, hey, where you at? And he'd be like, oh, dude, sorry. Like I'm in Las Vegas right now. Like I'll be back in a couple days, So this year he hasn't done that at all. And he's just been, super focused. And I think he's just finally like, all right, it's time for me to realize my full potential. And it's fun to see. It's been enjoyable to watch.
Do you get out and play with any of these guys at all?
Yeah, actually, I just played a couple of months ago with Sam and Vince Cavello. I don't know if you know Vince. He's got his PGA Tour card. He's been on a medical. I don't actually work with Vince, but he's a great guy, and he's around here. He's a member at Atlantic Beach Country Club down here. And we got out there and played, and I was actually 4 under through 7. And Vince was like, "Man, what made you stop playing? Like the game looks pretty solid." And I was like, "Oh, just hang around, man. We still got some holes to go." Next thing you know, I ship a few drivers out of bounds into some houses, and he's like, "Oh, okay, all right."
I would imagine though that going out with those guys and them seeing that you can actually play. You're not just a fitness guy. You're a fitness guy that knows the game. The body. That's got to give them a lot of confidence in you. Which again, they know like, hey, I'm working with a guy that he's got my back, and I know that what we're doing is the right thing to do to put me at my highest level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps, and I think it goes back to kind of what I said about sometimes you got to dial these guys back, and it's like, look, I've played a schedule where I've been on the road a lot, and I'm trying to play my best golf, and I'm just not capable because my body's not agreeing with the travel or the routine of playing that many days in a row. And I tell those guys, like, look, I've felt those feelings before. I've had injuries. I've had back injuries. I've had shoulder injuries. I've had the wrist injury. And it's like, I'm going to set them up to where they're healthy and they're feeling good. We might not push it into the gym to the max where they're lifting as heavy weight as, so-and-so, but I'm going to make sure that I'm setting them up for success when it comes down to them being on the road for 4 to 5 to 6 weeks. I don't want them. I mean, they always come back a little beat up after being on the road that long, but I want them to be able to play good golf deep into the season and feel like they can play consistent golf all season. So I think it helps being able to be a decent player. And I mean, I don't get out to play as much as I used to. And I mean, we've got a kid now, and she's almost 3. So like weekends are definitely just kind of hanging out with the family. So I definitely don't get to play as much, but I think those guys appreciate that I can actually, swing the club, and I know what I'm talking about a little bit when it comes to swinging the club. And I work with a lot of different tour players. I work with a lot of different coaches, and I think it helps the swing coaches be able to call me and go, hey, we're really working on him using the ground a little bit better, getting a little more internal rotation into his left hip. He's kind of bailing out, and me just knowing immediately like what they're talking about.
When you're working with the coaches, and obviously you work very closely with Todd and the staff there, which I want to hear a little bit more about that dynamic too. But when you're working with a player and you do know, like, hey, this guy needs, or the coach is saying, like, this is the move we're working on, these are the things that we're seeing. How do you implement, what you're doing in the fitness world, in the fitness side of things, into the skills or the mechanics of it? There's a lot of people, and again, my own personal experience, people come in, oh, what's a good exercise for this? What's a good golf exercise? And it's not quite that simple, right? It doesn't translate directly from the cable machine over to the
100%
to the golf course.
Yeah. I mean, I just remembered I got to call a guy back. Actually, a coach that called me earlier that I didn't call back. But we have a player that's on Korn Ferry Tour. He's had a really good season. John Scott Ratton is the coach's name, and he's out of Congressional. Really good guy, really good coach. And Jimmy Stanger is the player. And he started to see me this offseason. He had a lot of like back pain, and it was a lot of stuff where I didn't even need to know the golf swing, because I was just like, listen, like, we got to clean all this up. He's got some issues mechanically. He's not got the right activations. He doesn't use the right muscles at the right time. So we need to clean this up before I even like start thinking about golf swing and what he needs to do differently to help his body. But he's a great guy. I mean, he'll FaceTime me. He'll show me video. And like, a good thing with Jimmy Stanger is kind of similar. Like, he wasn't his left leg was extending way too early in the swing. So all his rotational force was pretty much just going straight up the chain into his back. He wasn't, absorbing. He wasn't using the ground to help him break. There was no absorption of that power into his left leg. His left glute was like non-existent. So we did a lot of work just getting his glute medius better, getting his left glute better, getting him to use like his quad and hammy and glute when he's coming down into the downswing. So like when I look at a guy like that, I'm going to go, all right, we're going to do a lot of split stance work, especially focusing on that left leg forward and having him, thoracically rotate into that hip while he keeps his big toe down. What I find a lot of times with those guys is they just want to, as soon as they start rotating into it, they just want to lift their big toe. It's like a kind of a cop out of actually using their glute to rotate into it. Those fascia lines with your big toe and your glute have a lot of a lot of correlation. So I really get those guys like, I'll put a band under their big toe and pull it. And I'm like, hey, don't let that big toe come up because this band's going to hit me in the wrist. So things like that I'll tie into when I hear from a golf coach, hey, we need to get him better. And I see in the assessment, like, hey, this is a direct correlation to the pain he's feeling as well. So it's always good too when the swing instructors, eyes are matching up with what I'm seeing in the assessment. It makes everybody's job a little easier, makes my job easier, and then I can make his job easier. But that's where I get some crap on social media when I use like a disc or a Bosu ball or some people are like, oh, this stuff. And it's like, not everything is about creating power. Like when I put a disc under someone's foot, they're not going to create a ton of ground force. Like they're using the disc, but like with him, his left leg wasn't very active. So I want to put a disc on, I want to put some instability and make him use that left leg to stabilize as he rotates. So it's like, there's different uses for things. Like if I had a guy and I'm like, oh, we're going to try to create ground force, I'm not going to be having him doing cleans on a Bosu ball, obviously, so it's like, I love social media and I hate it at the same time because it's like, I'm not going to explain everything I'm doing and I'm not going to put all the steps that it took to get to this spot or why we're doing it, but I'll explain a little bit. But you always get those people that jump on there and are like, oh, what are you doing? And it's like, just relax.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media can be the best and the worst for sure.
Yeah.
So then do you then have any place for them to maybe swing and like feel that immediately in their golf swing? I mean, obviously you have a place to do it. Do they go out to the range? Do they just do some swings in the gym? And how do you kind of take that? Okay, here's what we just did. We just activated this. We got this working. You're feeling this. Now, do you then have them feel that in their golf swing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we always take lunch here from like 12 to 1. And a lot of times I'll have guys from 12:30 to 1. We'll be in the bay doing like swing catalyst, trying to get them to feel like we'll do a lot of cues and activations and then have them swing. And pretty much every time they go, oh yeah, all right, I see what you're saying now. Like they connect it. I mean, these guys are all good athletes too. That's the thing
right.
is you give them the proper cue, they're going to do it in the swing. Like they got to where they're at for a reason. When it comes to the amateurs or like the retired guy that's trying to get a little bit better, it might take a little more coaching and a little more time, but it's the same idea. Like I'll give them some cues, be like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone and given a player a cue and they go, oh, it's supposed to be like that. I'm supposed to feel like my glute back here. And I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to just feel your hip flexor when you rotate, but it's great. I mean, I'm very lucky to be at a place like this that, allows me to just go down to the bay and have guys hit balls. And like Carl Yuan, he's a PGA Tour player I work with. He's a guy, he loves just like going to the bay. He'll do a full workout in the bay, in the heat. And he'll just be like, hey, let's bring a few bands, let's bring a few med balls, and I'm going to bring my clubs. And like, we'll do a couple sets of some exercises, then he'll hit 10 balls. And he's just he's a very feel-based guy, and he's just trying to feel that connection. And same thing, like that's the good thing. Todd Anderson's his swing coach, and that's the other good thing is Todd can just pop in and be like, oh, I like that. That's a good feel. I like, whatever it may be. He doesn't always like the feels I try to come up with, but I like to think he's pretty open-minded about them for sure.
Well, I think that's what's really cool is having you guys so close there that you can bounce those ideas off of each other. And I assume you guys have all kinds of technology that you use too. You mentioned the swing catalyst, and what else do you guys have there? Any biomechanics kind of stuff, and any biomechanics specialists there that are helping with some of those things?
So we're currently getting gears, which will be great. Yeah, which will be great. We had K-Vest, and we ended up kind of getting rid of the K vest. I mean, it's a great product. We just had issues with it getting like calibrated, and people are paying, they're paying a lot of money to come here for an hour, and it's like we don't want to be calibrating something for 15, 20 minutes, or them hitting one ball and us having, recalibrating. So we kind of went away from that, and we really use SwingCat a lot, and then obviously we use video and TrackMan, and we've got all that good stuff. But the gears will be a great addition for sure.
Have you worked with that at all before? The gears?
We have. I'm currently doing a lot of education just about like biomechanics and the gears and how to read all the data and everything like that. And I love that stuff. I'm like a geek about that stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting it. It's going to be exciting. It's cool right now I'm doing a bunch of stuff with a baseball guy, just talking about rotation and power. And it's cool. It's cool to see the differences. I think there's a lot of correlations in baseball, and there's also not a lot of correlations in baseball. It's just totally different spine angles, and you use your slings a little differently, but it's cool to see just different perspectives on how to create speed and how to create power.
Yeah, I heard a great quote a couple days ago. I think it was, have you ever heard of Dr. Kwan? And he said something about, movement sequencing is way more important than muscle conditioning when it comes to creating speed, creating efficiency. And
100%.
And I'm like you, I want to learn so much more about the biomechanics piece of it and understanding the sequencing a little bit better. And just watching some of those things, which I'm sure you're ingrained in completely with the biomechanics research you're doing now, or learning that you're doing about, and speak to that a little bit about how you try to develop some sequencing and what you see with your tour pros compared to some of the amateurs. Because I know what I see is amateurs, it seems like there's so much effort being put forth in our swings versus the pros. They make it look so easy, but they're obviously swinging way faster, hitting the ball way further.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you said the thing I just shot with Sam Ryder. We were talking about how Sam likes to do a lot of dynamic work before he plays to improve that sequencing and really get those like fast twitch muscles going. And I was saying, Sam tends to get quick, but quick can be slow. And the lady was like, the producer was like, well, wait, what are you talking about? Quick can't be slow. And I'm like, well, if his hips get too quick and his arms get left behind, it's going to be slow because he's going to stall at impact and try to catch up with the face. And she was like, her mind was, I don't know if she ever really understood what I was saying, but it's 100% true. I mean, there's so many players, and you hear it from amateurs all the time, that they'll come down and like watch some of our tour players just hit some balls. And they've got the TrackMan numbers on the board, and they'll be like, he does not look like he's swinging at 120. He looks like he's swinging at 100. And I was like, well, it's because his sequencing is perfect, and it's so efficient. And you're right. You see all these amateurs that are trying to create a lot of speed, and you see them getting real like herky jerky at the top. And it's like, but what you're doing at impact, and especially if you get real tilty, you're actually slowing down at impact. Your max speed is happening back here somewhere. So you're not actually creating that much speed when you hit the ball. And it's what I've found. My favorite thing in the gym is the Kaiser. I use the Kaiser functional trainer nonstop. And what I find is when I have players do different types of chops, whether it be like a split stance chop or, just a regular stance, is you're going to sequence it because you have to pull tension. So I do a lot of work with that Kaiser where I make guys do a lot of different chops. I have an alignment rod with a golf grip on it, and I make guys do a lot of like quick swings. And I go, we need to hear this whoosh, at impact, or if we're working on specific stuff, I'll have them be like, all right, I need to hear this whoosh back here, and I need this left foot to kind of hop at the same time. You need to time those up, sequence those up. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways, and I try to. The good thing with the Kaiser is, it gives you the power output per rep. So guys can really see like, oh, that was a fast rep, and I felt more pressure into my big toe, or felt more pressure into the ball of my foot when I did that. So it's like those instant cues. And then with the alignment rod with the grip on it, it's the same thing. They can hear the whoosh when it happens, and it's like an instant cue. They go, oh, okay, I did this a little different that time, and that was faster this time. So I like things that give guys instant feedback.
It's almost like having a fitness launch monitor, right? Like being able to read the tension, or even just the audio cues of being able to flip your driver over and swing, with the handle and hear those same kind of whooshes, and
100%.
And being able
100%.
to do it in different spots. means that you're doing different things with your body, right? So just building up that awareness.
Absolutely.
Let's take a second to thank our partners over at LivePure. LivePure is the #1 hydration drink that you need on the golf course, especially when it's getting hot out there, you're sweating, you're playing lots of golf. You need something more than just water in your water bottle. So Dr. Troy Van Biesen and his team formulated one of the greatest hydration products out there that is no sugar added, all natural ingredients, and the top quality PGA Tour pros, champions that you know, are all using this on the golf course. So go over to livepure.com. That's LIVPUR.com. Check out all their products. You can use the code 18STRONG and let LivePure champion your day. Again, with kind of more the not tour pros that you work with, but you know, the people that just come and see you on a regular basis, the country club guys, do you have people that just come in like for a day, they're in town, they're like, hey, I want to go to the performance center, and you do have people that drop in like that?
That's the cool thing about being here is you just never know who's going to come in, and you never know where they're traveling from or whatever it may be. I mean, we just did a big talk with 24 players from what's called Pathway to Progressions. It's a PGA Tour initiative to help players with diverse backgrounds to get noticed by college coaches. And I mean, we do a lot of these types of clinics and stuff like that. And some of these clinics, you're like literally teaching people how to hold a club, and like they come up to the gym and they're like, I didn't know I was doing fitness. I don't want to do fitness. And it's like, it can be brutal. But these guys, I mean, I started with them and I was talking with them, and they asked some like really good questions. And I'm like, man, I think these guys are pretty good players. And then, yeah, lo and behold, we go out there and our coaches were like, man, these guys are like really good. They're like no joke. And it was cool to see because, I mean, we had a couple guys from like Argentina. We had kids from Mexico. I mean, people were coming from California, Texas. They're from all over the place. And it was cool to see how many. I mean, it's a cool thing the tour is doing, obviously, but it's amazing. They were just talking about a lot of these guys don't get to play in like AJGA, so they don't get noticed by coaches, and they're sending them out to Nevada to go in front of like the coaches showcase. And I mean, it was cool because these guys they're insane. One of the guys shot 68 on stadium from the tips.
Whoa.
And it was like, and he just played in the U.S. Junior. I mean, he's a stud, and it's like he has no college offers, and you're like, man, but nobody's heard of him.
Nobody knows him.
So, but that's a cool thing. But it's definitely, I definitely have people, just normal people that come in for a couple days and they want to get an assessment done, and they want like a quick, program or two that they can do when they go back home. And I mean, some of those, I've met some really cool people that have come from all over the place to do those little like things. They follow me on Instagram, or they just Googled the Performance Center or whatever it may be. I always enjoy it. I've had people ask me like, oh, would you ever just want to work with tour players? And I always say no, because I enjoy just meeting all these different peoples with different backgrounds and different experiences. It's like, it's the fun part of my job. I know every hour is going to be a little different,
That's cool. Obviously, I know everybody that shows up is going to have their own individual needs. They're going to walk out of there with their own individualized program. But for the people that are listening that are just looking for a couple things, again, that idea of the low-hanging fruit, what are some of the biggest things that you see on a consistent basis, not for everybody, but, that a lot of people are going to benefit from, whether that be some sort of mobility drill or, warm-up wise or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I see is people don't realize how weak they are when it comes to lateral movement. So I'm a big fan of just giving someone a band and putting it in their golf bag and going, hey, just put this band, over your shins, over your feet, over your quads, and just walk sideways and keep your toes straight. Don't let them flare out. Don't let them flare in. And it's amazing to me, like when people take a little band that's not much tension and how much their hips start burning and how weak, and then they go, whoa, like I would have never guessed this. And I go, yeah, golf is a very lateral sport, and we're very linear people. And when you don't have that lateral stability, you're going to have a hell of a time playing consistent golf or creating any speed. So I think that's like the most common thing I see with people that have never done like much, in the fitness background, as far as when it comes to golf or sports specific fitness, is just how weak they are laterally. And then I have a lot of my tour players, they'll have bands on their quads and they'll be jumping side to side, and I'll make them keep the width between their knees. And I mean, a lot of my guys are good at it now, but when we first started, they're like, how are my hips burning this bad? And I'm like, well, we need to build them up, man.
It's very surprising. And, back to the biomechanics, I mean, people don't realize how much of the lateral forces impact the way that you rotate. We think everything's rotation, but it's like, no, there's got to be lateral to create that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the other thing I see a lot of is just people not being able to like thoracically extend. So, I mean, one of my favorite stretches is just having someone take like a dowel rod or a pole and just putting their hands on top and just extending their arms straight, sinking their chest down towards the ground. And it's like, I mean, everyone I have is like, oh my God, this feels amazing. And it's like, yeah, it's funny how such a simple stretch is something that like most people have just never done. And you're like, I mean, but that's like getting some lat length and like being able to get some extension out of the thoracic. Just everybody's so rounded and they always, they're sitting, they're holding their phone, they're looking down. And so those are two that I just see with everybody that I think everybody should just do.
And to your point, like that's why getting assessed can be so important.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily to get so specific on what you need, but like just to open your eyes that, holy cow, I figured this stuff should be pretty easy and I can't do it, right? Like the bands around your ankles, how tight are your hamstrings? Can you touch your toes? Can you, how rounded are your shoulders? All of those little things. It's amazing when you get put in a position that you haven't done in a long time. You've been sitting at a desk and then all of a sudden you're tested and put in this scenario where you thought you'd be able to do something easily. Balance is one of those things too that I see a lot. Like people just can't believe how bad their balance is.
They can't stand on one leg.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. To your point before, like balance is everything. Balancing, your corrections that you need, but also just balance to maintain yourself in the golf swing.
100%. And I think too, I think parents, one of the things I see that's most common that parents get wrong is the hamstring test. Like they're always like, my son, he can't even touch his shins. Like what? And I'm like, well, my first question is always, have they grown a lot in the past, 8 months? And they're like, oh yeah, they've grown, 3-4 inches. And I'm like, well, that's why. Like the muscle's so overstretched from the growth spurt that they can't. I'm like, just, let's do some active mobility and things like that. But let's not just have them hold a hamstring stretch for a while. And plus, like you don't want to take that speed away from them either, that quick twitch speed. So I think that's one of the things like low-hanging fruits that I see a lot with parents that they get wrong with like their junior golfers is they're like, oh, my son's so tight. And I'm like, well, he's grown a lot. So their muscles are overstretched already, but it's also, let's not take, if the kid's got a lot of fast twitch muscle, let's not take it away from him. Let's not turn him into a yogi. So it's like, let's like you're saying, let's do an assessment and let's know the individual and what they're good at. And I'm a big fan of whatever you're good at, let's make it even better. And then if there's some issues, limitations, let's obviously address those, but let's not ignore what you're really good at and try to make these limitations a strength. Because I just feel like that never ends up in making the player actually better.
That's a great point. I think it's a natural default for people to think that everything in golf has to be about flexibility and being able to rotate and get in these positions. And you're absolutely right that, if you've got, especially if you have that fast twitch speed, that's the one thing you definitely don't want to rob a kid of.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
All right, man, before we close it up, I got some typical questions we ask everybody that comes on the show. So first and foremost, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
So I'm definitely a Happy Gilmore guy. I mean, I was born in 1990. And I mean, I just feel like Adam Sandler was like my childhood, all those movies. I like Caddyshack. It's a classic movie and it's funny, but I'm definitely a Happy Gilmore guy.
If you could pick a walk-up song to the first tee box, what's your walk-up song?
Oh man, this was a tough one for me. I was bouncing back and forth. I mean, I always, I grew up listening to rap my whole life pretty much. And I grew up in Metro Detroit playing all these types of sports, and that's just what we listened to. And it was either between any song on Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent, or I'm a big fan of the song Blessings by Big Sean and Drake. That's like one of my favorite songs. So I'd say one of those two.
Love it. Is there a book that has meant a lot to you or that has really inspired you that you like to recommend to either your players or just to anyone in general?
That was a tough. I mean, I feel like I like to read. I've read so many good books. Chris Doris is like a really good author that's not well known. He's a good mental coach. He's got a lot of good books like Daily Affirmations. He's got one. It's all about just kind of finding your purpose and chasing. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's an older book. Chris Doris is a really good author. I just love his mental coach work as well. And then I'm reading a book called Inner Excellence right now. I think it's Jim Murphy.
Yeah, I got it right on my shelf here.
Really good book.
It's awesome.
Really good book. Yeah. So, right now I'd say that's the best book, and that's one that I'm definitely recommending to my players for sure is that book.
That's a huge one. I know that like Scheffler has mentioned that book. Some of the top level guys have mentioned that book and just taking themselves to the next level. So
yeah, it's unreal.
Really cool. All right, what's your dream foursome? If you could pick a foursome to go play golf with, could be anybody, celebrities, historical figures, whoever. Who you picking?
Yeah. I would definitely say Michael Jordan. Grew up a huge Michael Jordan fan. This was Steve Yzerman. Captained the Red Wings my whole childhood. Yeah. I played hockey my whole life. Is my favorite sport. So he was definitely like my hero growing up. And the third one was tough. I think I would just bring my dad. Because I know he would love to play with Stevie Y and Michael Jordan, so I think I would just have to bring him,
Very cool. All right, if we had the 18 strong jet fueled up, we're like, Alex, we're going anywhere you want to go. Yeah. You got a free ticket. Where are you heading? What golf course?
Oh man, I feel like the automatic answer is Augusta, just because it's just this hollow play where you just want to go play. You just want to walk the grounds. But man, I'll tell you what, I would love to go to Bandon Dunes. I've never been out there. I love the Pacific Northwest, and I've never really been there, but I just love the way it looks, and I love mountains. And I'm more of a mountain guy than an ocean guy, which kind of sucks living in Florida because there's not even a hill here. But I think I'd go if it's not Augusta, I'd go somewhere out there.
That's definitely on my list also. All right, I'm gonna throw another one in here that's not on our normal list, but since you're a TPC Sawgrass, what's your hardest hole there, and what's your favorite hole there?
Oh man, that's a good one. My nemesis is number 5. I've just always, or you know what? Actually, I take that back. My nemesis is number 14. Yeah. The par 4 with the water on the left. I've made some birdies on 5 at least, but 14, I just feel like I've never played well. And I feel like the wind is always just howling into your face. And it's just an absolute monster. I played a tournament here when I was a kid. I was a junior in high school. And my parents were standing on the cart path about 30 yards right of the fairway, and I almost killed them. It was like I just bailed out harder than you could ever bail out. And then the next day they were standing even further right, and I almost got them again. I'll never forget it. And it was just like, my dad's like, hey, like, what are you doing? They were 50 yards from the fairway, and you're almost getting us. And I was like, man, I don't know. This tee box just doesn't add up to me. So I would say that hole for sure. Awesome. And then my favorite hole out here, I love 16, that par 5. I think it's so just a cool hole. And it's like, you're during the players, I think it's one of my favorite holes because it's the best view of 17. So it's like you get the stadium atmosphere as you're walking down 16, and it's like you're just looking across the water at what's to come, and it's just a cool atmosphere.
I totally agree. So I had a chance to play it the day after the players, and I can remember like driving up on 16, you kind of get past the grandstands in the fairway on the right-hand side, and then all of a sudden the water opens up. You see 17, you got that big tree on the left-hand side, and it's like, man,
100%.
It doesn't get any better than this. It's
awesome.
So
it's
great.
Awesome.
All right, and then last one, is there a social media account that you think the 18 Strong crew should go out and follow? Obviously, you're doing an amazing job posting a ton of great content. Is there somebody else that you like to follow that you'd recommend?
This one was really tough for me. I feel like there's just so many good golf fitness guys out there now. Like, I feel like if I name them, I'm going to leave some people out.
Doesn't have to be
I hate
golf
to,
fitness. Could be a totally unrelated account too, if you want to go that route.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, honestly, it's gonna sound like a cop out, but when I'm not like posting stuff, I really try not to scroll too much.
Very smart man.
I know. I just find the more I scroll on social media, the less happy I am. So it's like I really try. If I'm not on there, I'm not. And I know there's a lot of posts I probably should like from friends of mine that I haven't liked. And I always tell, like, a lot of my close friends know I just don't really go on social media when I post, and I just kind of try to get off of it. And I'll respond to like comments on my page and stuff like that. But I just try not to like just start scrolling. But man, I follow so many good golf. I mean, all the golf fitness guys, and I mean the Andos of the world, Athletic Golf Fitness, Jonathan Alvalos. There's just so many.
Yeah, lots of good ones out there. Lots of good ones.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, tell everybody where they can follow you. Where's the best place, website wise, social media wise, all that.
So website and social media is just AB Fitness and Golf. YouTube is Alex Bennett Fitness and Golf. That's where to find me.
Excellent. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on today. It's finally nice to connect and get a chance to chat, and I'm sure we'll be chatting much more in the future. I love what you're doing. I love the work that you do. Get some of those guys some wins out on tour, and we'll be seeing much more of you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Anytime. I had a good time.
You got it, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us this week on the 18 Strong podcast with Alex Bennett. If you want any more information that we talked about in the show, any of the links to his social media or any of the other topics we talked about, go to 18strong.com. This is episode number 351, and you'll find it all right there. We'll catch up again with you next week with another great guest. Train hard, practice smart, play better golf.